Texas A&M tight end Amari Niblack is gonna have a breakout season for the Aggies.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. On the show today, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking a little bit about this weekend series for the baseball team. I know you ended on a positive note, and we'll talk about it, but I mean, not great. Basketball team, the slide, the skid continues. The struggles continue for this basketball team with, hey, it's March now. It's March, and the struggles continue, so we'll talk about it. But we're going to start the show talking about Amari Niblack, the tight end for the Aggies who comes over from Texas, who came over to Texas from Alabama. When watching Amari Niblack at, I think, more Alabama almost than at Texas, you watched him play and you went, this kid can be special. In that 2023 season for the Crimson Tide, he had 20 catches, 327 yards, and 4 touchdowns. This year, or last year, 2024, for the Longhorns, he only caught 5 passes for 33 yards, which, once again, made a lot of sense. He was behind Helm, and I mean, he's behind a dominant tight end in college football. I mean, I'm not, it's my point in saying that is I think that he can be a very good player who was behind a very good player. And, now looking at the future when you're sitting here and looking at the future for Amari Niblack, I think he's going to have a breakout season for the Aggies. I mean, he kind of, you could say, had a bit of a breakout season for Alabama in his second year with the Crimson Tide, and then goes over to Texas, and it does not work out because he's once again behind a really good player in Gunnar Helm. So now, Amari Niblack comes over to Texas A&M kind of in a spot where he's trying to prove his worth, prove that he's a player that has that upside. But I mean, if y'all remember right, when he was at Alabama, there was talks, this kid's going to be special. This kid's really good. And then he makes the move to Texas. And and we talked about this when Colin Klein was picked to be the OC for Mike Elko. He wants to get the tight ends involved. This is something we had talked about with Mike O'Reilly, another Texas A&M tight end transfer, came over from Auburn. We talked with him recently and said the same thing. I mean, Coach Klein wants to get these tight ends involved. I think last year, I kind of go back and forth on this thought. I mean, you didn't like at Kansas State in his final year, Coach Klein had a tight end in Sinat who was like the go-to guy. He got pretty much every single receiving yard or reception for that tight end room. Now, this year, you had a bunch of yards go. You had 280 yards go to Watson and 184 yards go to Theo. And you had 57 yards go to Calhoun. So you saw a lot of the tight end room kind of getting used. It was a lot of, 300 yards to this guy, 180 to this guy. A lot of guys were getting involved in that room. I think the difference this year is I think Amari Niblack is going to be the guy. And we don't, Nate Borger, the kid that came over from Nebraska, is a player that, yeah, he's a great blocking tight end. I don't think you're going to see him get all that involved as a pass catcher. I think that in a guy like Mike O'Reilly, and he said himself when he was on the show a few weeks ago, he basically said, I have a lot left to prove. Not a lot of people know who I am as a player yet because I haven't had the opportunity to do so. And so there could be, he could be great this year for the Aggies. But if I had to make my pick right now, I think Amari Niblack is going to have a break onto the scene. And I mean, it's not going to be, I'd say 600 yards is probably the high end of what I think that could be. I mean, like, I'm not going to sit here and say I think Amari Niblack is going to go for 1,000 yards. I don't see it, just because I also think KC Concepcion is incredible. I think you're going to see a lot of passing yards go to Terry Bussey and some of these other guys. I mean, there's a lot of yards to be spread around within this wide receiver room. So, I mean, in these pass catchers, within these pass catchers. So, I don't know if Amari Niblack gets more than, I don't know if I see him eclipsing 600 yards. I mean, y'all tell me in the YouTube comments, do y'all see a world where he does get more than 600 yards? Does he go? You know what I mean? I think he's going to be the leading receiver in this tight end room, a room that I think is going to be more utilized. I guess my point is, I mean, last year, what was the number? Let's do this. So we had, we'll round up and say 300 went to Watson. We'll round up and say 200 went to Mellon Nordstrom. So that's 500. And about 57. So a little bit over 500 yards went to this tight end room, right? Let's make sure it's just Calhoun, Theo, and Watson. Yeah. So a little over 500 yards. I think that's going to be the reality for this year. I just think most of it's going to go to Niblack. I think he's going to be the main pass catcher for this tight end room. And yeah, I think Theo's going to have a role this year. I think Borkshire is going to have his role as a run blocker, and Mike O'Reilly's going to get his snaps. And, it's going to be a room where you're going to see a lot of different players getting involved in different ways. But at that same time, I think that when it comes to as a pass catcher, and I know blocking is a massive part of the tight end position. But I think when it comes to the upside as a pass catcher, I think Amari Niblack is going to be that guy for the Aggies. I just, when you watch him play, when you watch the film, mostly that Alabama film, and there's just not a ton of film from his Texas when he caught 5 passes. That Alabama film, that's a guy that could be really good. And I think that's what he's going to be. I think that is what we're going to see Amari Niblack do. I think that Coach Klein is going to, so maybe the utilization will be similar this year, pass catching wise for the tight end room, but it's just, I think, going to be more centralized to one player rather than, and I mean, if you really think about it, I mean, Calhoun had 57 yards. It was really mostly Theo, and Watson. And I mean, Theo, didn't he have like one massive game? Yeah, it was the New Mexico State game. He had 111 of his 184 yards came again in the New Mexico State game. I mean, he had 4 yards against Texas, 27 against Bowling Green for a touchdown, and then 29 against Florida for a touchdown. So, I mean, he did some stuff, but I mean, most of the yardage came on in one game, which, great to see. But point being, I think that if you really do the math on that, I mean, besides the one game where they got Theo involved, it was the Watson show, and even he didn't do all that much. I mean, it was more spread around a lot of games. I just, heading into this year, and I mean, it was funny because Watson actually had 67 yards in that game. So, I mean, tight ends had darn near 200 yards in that game. So I just think that, I mean, like, you take out that New Mexico State game, this tight end room goes for 300 yards, like, on the whole season. So I think it's going to get more involved this year. I think it's going to get more involved, and I think most of that yardage is going to go to Amari Niblack. I think he's the most talented pass catcher this tight end room has. I think he's got the highest upside as a pass catcher in this tight end room. And yeah, I mean, when you watch him play, I think he's a guy that is more than capable of taking that next step. I mean, he just, once again, didn't have the opportunity to do so this year with everything that was going on with Gunnar Helm and how good he was. So, I mean, in Amari Niblack, the 6'4", 245-pound tight end, I think that he is going to get more involved this year. I do. I think that he's going to find a way to get more involved. So, I'm anxious to see how that is going to work itself out. I think that he's going to be really good this year. And yeah, I think that he can have around 600 yards. I think it's possible. I think that's a bolder take. I'd say more realistic would be in that 400 to 550 range, but I think he's got 600 upside. So yeah, let me know in the YouTube comments. Do y'all think that there's a world where Amari Niblack goes for more than 600 yards? Or do you think 600s are too high of a number? Let me know that in the YouTube comments. But yes, I think Texas A&M tight end Amari Niblack is going to have a breakout season for the Aggies and really kind of show you what Colin Klein wants with his tight ends. The basketball team got absolutely blown out by the Florida Gators. We're going to talk about what went wrong, and it's going bad for this team at a bad time. We'll talk about all that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at Roy. Attention, Locked On Aggies fans. Ever wished you could directly support your favorite Texas A&M athletes and be part of their journey? Now you can with Roy, the NIL app that puts fans in control. Before Roy, NIL deals were often handled behind closed doors, and fans like you didn't have a clear way to directly support players you love. Now with Roy, you can make a real impact and feel closer to athletes representing Texas A&M. With Roy, you get to choose the player you want to support, decide how much you want to contribute, and then get exclusive content straight from the athletes you back. The best part, if the player transfers, you get your money back. So it's a risk-free way to show your support and make your voice heard. Support your favorite players directly and help the future of Texas A&M sports. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing Texas A&M athletes the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and real impact. This is the future of college sports. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. So Texas A&M goes on the road to take on the Florida Gators and get absolutely pummeled, steamrolled. It was rough. Another, 7-21 from the field for Phelps and Wade Taylor. Wade Taylor is now getting to the point. I'm not trying to harp on him too much. We love Wade Taylor. He's a great person. I think he's a great basketball player. But, he is not. He is now in his last 5 games. This is his last 5 games from the field. 27.3, 30, 26.7, 28.6, 30.8. He's not hitting the broadside of a barn right now. And yes, he's giving you 18, 11, 18, 21, and 11. Like he's scoring points, but it's inefficient. And he's got – so, I think there's the box score watchers who look at a box score and go, well, Wade Taylor scored 18 points. Yeah, on 2 of 19. Like it's not efficient, and Texas A&M's offense needs to find a way to be more efficient. So, looking at the future of this team when it comes to the future, when it comes to the SEC and NCAA tournament, this team's got to be better offensively. It's great to see Payne start to get really dominant down low. 14 points this game, 6 of 15. Not incredibly efficient, but it's at least he's starting to score more for you. I'm big on efficiency. I think efficiency wins basketball games. But he was still 40% from the field in this game. That's closer to what you want. Solomon Washington gives you 10 points on 4 of 6. Anderson Garcia gives you 3 of 5. From the field on 9 points, also makes us only 3. Then from the bench, a game where you just don't get next to anything. You get a total of 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You get 10 bench points. Now, to be fair, you only scored 70 total points. Another game where you go 19 of 28 from the free throw line. And Florida does what Florida does. They go 14 of 33 from 3 for 42%. They get a massive game from Will Richard. This is why I think Auburn, who Texas A&M, I'm getting ready to record with Locked On Auburn's Zach Blackerby and break down that game here. Actually, I'm going to record with him in about 20 minutes. But that's why I think Florida is the second best team in college basketball. They have 3 guys between Richard, Clayton Jr., and Martin on any given night can go insane. In this game, Richard gives you 25, Clayton gives you 10, and Martin gives you 14. But then they've also got great bigs in Condon, Hanlogden, and Thomas Howe. I mean, they're just a really good basketball team, and I did not think Texas A&M was going to go on the road and win this game. I did not, but I thought they were going to compete better than they did. And I mean, you've now dropped all the way down to 22 overall, the 22 overall team. You've lost 4 games in a row. You lose Mississippi State to Tennessee, to Vandy, and the Florida Gators. I mean, it's not like that's been the easiest stretch ever with Tennessee, Mississippi State, and Florida. But, if Texas A&M was supposed to be this elite top 10 basketball team, you got to win a few of those games. They're 0-4 in the last 4 games. And you got a shot where you go 0-5 because you got the Auburn Tigers coming into town who just went to Rupp Arena and beat the crap out of Kentucky. I mean, this Texas A&M team is in a rough spot right now. And, I mean, at the end of the day, you look at the box score on this one, and once again, I mean, the rebounds, they did get you by 5 rebounds on this game. You turned the ball over 15 times. That turned into 16 Florida points. That's not going to get the job done. They outscored you in the paint 36-30. I mean, in Texas A&M, they made a little bit of a run early. They had a 6-point lead at one point, but obviously, Florida runs away with it. And against a team like Florida, offensive rebound, the 2 best rebounding teams in college basketball, you didn't have your normal advantage on the offensive glass. You still got 15 offensive boards, but they got 14. So, I mean, it wasn't that elite advantage you normally have in that category. They turned the ball over 11 times. You only scored 8 points off those 11 turnovers. Once again, I mean, this is a common theme. It continues to show the struggles that this Texas A&M basketball team has. So, I mean, you're in a spot right now. You got the SEC tournament in Nashville coming up next week. I mean, you're in a spot where it's all offense. The offense has to improve. If the offense isn't going to improve, it's hard to see a world where this team goes on a run in the NCAA tournament. I mean, I'm to the point now where I am fully saying to myself, I don't see it. I don't see Texas A&M going on a run the way they're playing right now. I mean, they're not playing good basketball. They're not shooting the ball well. And this is why this is my point, I think, is kind of making me look smart right now. And if you can't score and you're inefficient, you lose basketball games. I don't care how good your defense is. You still have to be able to score in some way or another and have some efficiency. And, Zerk Phelps and Wade Taylor, they might be putting up double digits on a night-to-night basis. They're doing it inefficiently, and inefficient doesn't win basketball games. So, I mean, until further notice, I'm a bit out on this team. I don't think they're going to make a run, and I hope I'm wrong. Obviously I hope I'm wrong. I'm not buying it right now with the struggles they have offensively. I mean, defense wins championships. I know that, but at the same time, I mean, the defense has had its fair share of troubles. Like, let's pull up KenPom. Let's see where the defense is now in KenPom. It was up to 5 at one point. And it is now still at 8, so it hasn't dropped super far, but I mean, I knew it would have dropped a little bit. It's been a little bit worse than it had been. So, I mean, I believe that this team has talent. I believe that there's a world where they can get things turned around, but they have got to do it. They've got to figure it out. There is a lot left to figure out for this basketball team if they want to make a run in March. Baseball team has another rough weekend. We'll talk about it. You did end on a positive note, but still a lot of concerns, a lot of negatives right now. We'll break it down coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into same-game parlays. I love using FanDuel because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So the baseball team goes out of town to play in Houston, and you lose to Arizona, you lose to Oklahoma State, and you finish the weekend with a win over Rice. You score, I mean, you're pitching, you only gave up 7 total runs against Arizona and Oklahoma State, and you scored 2. That's not going to get the job done. You lose 2-3 to Arizona. You lose 0-4 to Oklahoma State. Then you run rule Rice. That was great to see in this game. You get 3 hits from Jace. You get 2 hits from Caden Kent. The offense really, Terrence Keel gives you 3 hits. You got 13 total hits in this game. You only struck out 4 times. This is what you wanted to get going. You get a home run from Cash. You get a home run from Kent, from Hensler, from Hayden Schott. You kind of figure it out a little bit offensively in this game. And I think, and then, Patton was great in this game, 7 strikeouts. You only walk 1 in this game, strikeout 12 between Moss, Patton, and Fresh Corn. I was really happy with the pitching in this game, only giving up 4 runs. But at the end of the day, the concern right now is much more significant than it's much more significant than this is a good win. It was great to see the offense get going. Hopefully that turns things around. You got 5 games this week. You play New Mexico State 3 times. You play Texas Southern and you play UTSA on Tuesday. But against Arizona, right? You scored 2 runs. Your offense in this one strikes out 13 times. You only get 5 hits. This is just not gonna win baseball games. It's just not. So, the issue, right? I don't have a ton of pitching concerns right now. For the most part, I feel good about where the pitching's at. My concern with this team at the moment is the offense. The offense, and with Sorrell and Grahovac dealing with these injuries, you got to find a way to get offense some way or another. And here's the thing. You got to get hot before SEC play. You've already lost 4 baseball games. You're in a tough spot. So I said last week, I have opened the case that protects the red button. I have now gone from having the case open to moving my hand where I'm hovering right above the button. I am concerned about this team, but I believe they have the talent. Sometimes it just has to click, and you got to hope it clicks, because if it doesn't, this could be a really rough season for the Aggies that could have been a lot better. So need to turn it around, need to get healthy a little bit here and start hitting the ball. And we can figure it out, but there's a lot still to get done. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for being here every single day. I really do appreciate it. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day today, and we'll see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Aggies.